What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's THI publisher Andrew Jones, and we're here for another episode of our UNC basketball look ahead series, and we're going to be focusing on Cormac Ryan in this episode, a guy that a lot of Carolina fans are already familiar with, even going back to his 1 year that he played at Stanford back in 2018, 2019, and obviously familiar with him from his last 3 years in South Bend as a Notre Dame player. So we're going to dive into him and look ahead to what his role might be on the Tar Heels team this season. Before we do, a couple housekeeping items to focus on. This show is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. Big thank you to them for sponsoring. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Link is in the description for all the information you need about them, but stay tuned for that. And AJ, we've also got a really, really exciting promo that we're running over it on TarHeelIllustrated.com. Links in the description, as well as all the information you need for that as well. And you can get 50% off the first year annual subscription. So 50% off a 1 year subscription at TarHeelIllustrated.com using the promo code HEELS23. The offer is valid through Friday at noon. So October 13th, Friday at noon, this will run out. So not a ton of time to get involved, but still plenty of time to go ahead and sign up for that. And AJ, we're going to be giving away 3 free tickets to the Miami game as well this weekend. Carolina football playing Miami this weekend at 7:30. So if you want to get a 50% off an annual subscription and you want to have a chance to win 3 tickets to the Miami game, we can send them to you digitally, so you don't have to meet us at the gate or nothing like that. Make it nice and easy for you. Go ahead and sign up using that promo code HEELS23. And it's a great time to do so. Basketball is right around the corner. Football's in full swing. Football team's been doing fantastic so far this year, and then recruiting's 365 days a year. And you can become a Carolina insider too. So much content that we put out is not free content, and you have to be a premium subscriber to see it in the first place. Yep. We should also get other perks, get to interact on our awesome message boards, awesome community over there, really, really dedicated Tar Heel fans. So there's just so many perks with being involved in being a premium subscriber. Can't recommend it enough if you want to get more information on Carolina. And again, the more money we make on the website, the more money we can generate on the YouTube, the more content we can put out. And that's a bonus for everybody. So again,
absolutely.
Make sure you use that promo code HEELS23. Links in the description below, and stay tuned for some more information on Underdog Fantasy. But AJ, let's in terms of starting with Cormac Ryan, Carolina had media day last week. I want to start there with you because that was the first time you were able to kind of get up close and personal, talk to a lot of these new guys, and obviously Cormac Ryan being one of them. So I'll just go ahead and ask you, and you can see the interview we have with him on our YouTube channel, but from sitting there, from talking to Cormac Ryan, what were some of your takeaways and just some of your first impressions of being up close and kind of personal with him for the first time?
Mature guy. Mm-hmm. He'll be 25 during the season.
He's been around the block a little bit.
Been around the block. You know, this will be his 6th year in college. He had the first year at Stanford, and he transferred to Notre Dame when you still had to sit out a year. Mm-hmm. So he transferred, sat out a year. And then, so he had that year. Then he had the COVID year that he got back, which is why he's got 6 years. And he's a guy that Carolina fans are very familiar with. He's played, 6 games against Carolina. When he was a true freshman at Stanford, he started, played 34 minutes, scored 14 points in the Dean Dome.
Yeah.
I remember that game. It was not a very well played game by the Tar Heels that night. I think it was like a Monday night or something. And he's been pretty solid against Carolina since. Hadn't shot great in some of the games, but you can see that he was always one of the dudes out there. He's a vocal leader. He's a fanny smacker. He's an intensity guy. He's someone who had to really take a lot of responsibility at Notre Dame. Mike Bray called him one of the best captains he'd ever been around. And remember, Mike was on a lot of those Duke staffs that were really good when Coach K got that thing rolling. So, and he's had some really good teams at Notre Dame, really good leaders too. So Bray can't say enough about him. I think Cormac is a guy who kind of like Brady, you know, the Carolina opportunity sort of fell in Brady's lap in some respects. And Brady just soaked it all in and embraced it and said, I'm going to make the most of this in a different kind of way. I'm not saying Pete Nance didn't do that. All guys are going to try to do that, but there's sort of a different approach. And Cormac reminds me of that in some ways. He can be an emotional leader, a vocal leader, a guy who's not afraid to say what he wants to say, has to say, like Brady was. And I think he can serve some of those same roles that Brady did. And let's face it, Brady was an igniter at times when he was at Carolina. He's there 1 year, man. He wants to make the most of it. He's not screwing around. Mm-hmm. His personality was that way. Pete didn't have the same kind of personality. Just wasn't his personality. I think Cormac's got that. I think that's what this group needs. He's one of 5 players on this roster that was a captain last year in college. And Harrison Ingram, as I sidebar for a moment, he was a sophomore in a program that only seniors could be captains. But he was a de facto captain. That's what he told me. He de facto captain on that team. He had to do a lot of the talking. He had to smack fannies every once in a while as well. So I think Cormac brings so much to the floor. The gravitas, the been there, done that. The guy who will catch and shoot more than he ever has in his life this year. So many of his shots were off the dribble. I asked him, I said, what is the one thing Carolina fans are going to see from your game that maybe they didn't see as much at Notre Dame because they know your game well? And he said he's going to catch and shoot a lot more because they have a lot of dudes on the floor that have court awareness, that look for teammates. I think the way they play is going to be spread more, a little bit bouncier. And as a result, more guys are going to get catch and shoot threes than we've seen from Carolina in a while. Mm-hmm. So I think the composition of the roster, the personalities on the roster, all this play into his favor. And he did tell me that before he chose Carolina, he did talk to RJ and Armando about some of those things. Mm. And they were like, come on, man. We know what you're all about. We know that you're feisty as hell. Think about that little scuffle with Puff Johnson last year on the baseline in Chapel Hill. He brings an edge, and they need that edge. And RJ and Armando are like, yeah, bring that edge, bring that been there, done that, bring your ability to handle the ball in a shot clock situation and get something out of it, either yourself or for somebody else, and bring that sniper attitude on the perimeter. Given the fact that Notre Dame had no point guard last year, and given the fact that so many of Cormac's shots were off the dribble last year, he still shot 34.5% from three-point range. So imagine what he might do in a more catch-and-shoot environment where he's the third and fourth option, whereas at Notre Dame, a lot of the times, if it wasn't Leshevsky, he was the first option.
Yeah. It's a great point. I think he's such an intriguing player, and I think he's a guy that Carolina fans are really excited about because of that experience he brings, because he's done it in the ACC, and because in a lot of ways, like you've talked about, he's kind of what the Tar Heels need is an outside shooter and a guy who brings a little bit of that edge to the court every time he plays, which Carolina maybe at times was lacking a little bit last year, and there's a whole plethora of reasons for why. But when you bring in an experienced guy, I've always said this, not only an experienced guy, but a guy who's done it in the league you're playing in and against you before, that to me is the biggest plus and some of the best guys that you can bring in. So AJ, we're going to talk about
wants to win. And a guy that wants to win. We'll get into that in a second.
Exactly. We'll get in that in a second. A couple more things to talk about in regards to Cormac Ryan. But before we do, big thank you to Underdog Fantasy. We're super excited to be partnered with them. And we decided to partner with them because of the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. And also that it's the easiest place to play fantasy sports as well. I mean, it sounds like an opinion, but it's a fact. It really, really is. And they have a lot to offer, including their Pick'em game. And in Pick'em, you choose whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in this week's game for a chance to win big. So easy to play. Just pick 2 to 5 stats of your favorite players. Pick whether they'll go higher or lower. You can even 20x your money by going 5 for 5. Best Ball Mania as well. If you think you know football in particular, and there's the basketball show, but if you think you know football in particular this time of year, need to check this one out. This year's Best Ball Mania has $15 million in total prizes up for grabs, with the winner taking home $3 million. Sign up today. Promo code HEEL, HEEL, to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com, or you can find them in the App Store. Don't forget to use that promo code HEEL to get that first deposit doubled up to $100. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. If you're concerned with your play, call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ncpgambling.org. We'll make it nice and easy for you guys. Links in the description below. Just don't forget to use that promo code HEEL when you sign up. A big thank you to them for sponsoring this show, and long may it continue. All right, AJ, I want to talk about Ryan a little bit more, and I'm just going to go ahead and ask you, I think we all expect him to start at that 3 position. Makes a lot of sense. I think he adds a lot to this offense. especially from the outside and the perimeter. And again, you could even say defensively a little bit, and just with his size and length and his athleticism as well. I think he's a good guy to have out there on the court. And again, I think he's a guy Carolina fans are really excited about. But when you think about Cormac Ryan and when you think about his role could be on this team, is he a guy you expect to kind of have that green light when you're open, shoot the ball? Do you think that's potentially the role that he has on this year's team?
Yeah, Hubert already said last week when we talked on Media Day that there are three guys on this team with the green light from the perimeter, and that's R.J. Davis, Cormac Ryan, and Paxson Wojcik. And right now, Cormac's starting at the 2. The starting lineup right now, if they played a game today, would be R.J. Davis, Cormac Ryan, Paxson Wojcik, Harrison Ingram, and Armando Bacot. And we'll do the Cadeau stuff at a different time. People are flipping out about that, which, guys, it's freaking October. Good gracious.
It's the first thing I thought of when you told me about some of that news. I was like, oh, God, this is going to be fun.
Well, we put the videos out for practice, and people are like, oh, my God, what's wrong? Love it.
Yeah,
I love it. I do. I love the passion, man. I really do. But
it's fantastic.
But pump to break some guys. But right now, Cormac's 2. He's more 2 than Wojcik is. Wojcik's more 3 than he is. Wojcik's better rebounder. He's someone that probably can guard a little bit bigger than Ryan can. So, but him back there with RJ, man, that's a lot of been there, done that. I know I've used that expression a couple times today. Mm-hmm. That is so much, and there's no substitute for that in college sports. Mm-hmm. We're watching Carolina's defense show us that right now in football, and that will be the carryover with basketball as well. That will be the case. And by the way, another thing that I mentioned right before we went to the Underdog Fantasy promo, the thing that I really, really appreciate about Cormac, and we're going to see this come out in his play, especially when he's a guy that does a lot of little intangible stuff as well, is there's a saying in college sports that young guys want to play, old guys want to win. And he absolutely fits that. He could have played overseas and made some good money. He'd be playing overseas right now if he wanted to, and he'd make good money. He would have been in an NBA camp somewhere. Mm-hmm. So would have had that opportunity. But he chose to go to North Carolina. I don't know what the NIL stuff is like, but I don't think initially it was a lot. It could change during the course of the season.
Yeah, of course.
Like Brady's did. Brady's went off the charts during the season.
Yeah.
Especially late. And he's still raking it in on that. So Cormac wants to win. 2 years ago, Notre Dame made a nice little run. They closed the season very well. They won a couple games in the tournament and then lost. Last year, Notre Dame went 3-15 or 3-17 in the ACC.
Tough year for Notre Dame.
They had a lot of close losses, and he played his butt off in a lot of those close losses, but just couldn't deliver them a win. They didn't have enough. They grossly underachieved. And then Bray retired. Mm-hmm. And it was probably something that the school agreed with as well. So he has a chance to have a unique experience this year. I would imagine most of those guys in college basketball, they look across the court and see a Kentucky or a Kansas or a Carolina or even a Duke and think, man, that's like a forbidden paradise. It's a forbidden community that I'm not a part of. And now a guy like him who's been at Stanford and Notre Dame, programs that have had a lot of success in the past, but they're not anything close to what UNC is. Suddenly he's in that forbidden city. He's wearing the Carolina blue and he's playing pickup in the summer with all these dudes coming back. And he sees Roy Williams in the hallway at the Smith Center or something like that a lot. It's just a different animal. And I think he's a guy that can handle being on that stage, being in that environment, carrying that responsibility. And I think that's why he went there, because he wanted that experience. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just a place to play. He wanted all of that. He wanted to play games that mattered and would connect to this laundry in the ceiling, the banners and the jerseys. He wanted that. And I think that's cool. So it's going to be neat chronicling how he articulates things through the course of the season, the team and his personal experiences. It's going to be a neat thing. Mm-hmm. And there are a couple other guys like that too. Harrison Ingram, right in that category as well.
Oh, there's plenty
Wojcik
of them
too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I talked to Wojcik, Ingram, and Ryan the other day at Media Day for a while and got the same vibe from all three of them. Yeah. And they're mature guys. Ingram's a really smart guy, mature guy. Wojcik and Ryan are college graduates from good schools.
Yeah, not bad degrees, right? Yeah, not bad degrees.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of smarts on this team too. It's a different group. I got a good vibe about this team, and I got a really good vibe about Cormac Ryan.
Agreed. Last thing, leadership-wise, do you think he brings an element of that too with that experience? I know he's new to the program, but with the experience, guys know who he is, played against him a lot. To me, doesn't seem like a guy who's going to walk in that room and be like, well, I'm the new guy here. I don't want to push anybody's buttons or step on anybody's toes. He doesn't give me that vibe.
He was a leader his first week. He told me it just happened right away. Mm-hmm. He said, naturally, he's a leader. Naturally, he speaks up, speaks his mind. And he said, RJ and Armando told him they wanted him to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
They said it.
They got a couple guys. I don't know. Him and Wojcik. Wojcik's another one.
Yeah, I don't think RJ's super, super talkative. He could be a leader. Armando is a guy that, when you're going through a tough time, you got Armando cracking something in the locker room to sort of lighten the moment, right? But Armando at times spoke out last year very critically, and the team didn't always respond. So he's still learning how to be a leader. You bring in someone like Cormac, he helps the leadership aspect of this team a lot. And he told me that as soon as he got there, look, this is who I am. I got to be this guy here too. I'm part of this program too, and I want to win. So I'm going to lead. I'm going to do everything I can to vocalize. And some of the things that RJ also said and Harrison said and Cormac told me last week is that like they get on each other. And there's sort of this equal status thing. And Cormac's earned it. He's earned it. These guys know. They understand who he is and what he is, and they want him to be that guy. So when he showed up, RJ and Armando said, by all means, be who you are. Don't hold back. So he's been a leader for 5 months. He's a leader. He might end up being the most visual leader that we see on the team this year. And that wouldn't be a bad thing.
That's a big plus because he obviously brings a lot of things that show up on the stat sheet, but we've talked about that a lot and what this program maybe has lacked last year in particular. You can bring in guys like that, and there's a couple more. Harrison Ingram, Paxton Wojcik, we've talked about a lot. All his coaches have talked about his leadership abilities. I think adding those intangibles to this roster is another reason that there's a lot of optimism, a lot of excitement, not only from fans, but I think from the team. There seems to be a good vibe within the program right now that maybe was absent 6 months ago. I mean, it really hasn't been that long since things were kind of very doom and gloom in Chapel Hill. So you got to give credit to Hubert Davis for what he was able to do with the roster.
And he's also a back it up guy with his play.
He's not some guy who's averaging 2 points a game in his career and just,
No. And one of the things that I'm highly intrigued, I went back and looked at all of his games here recently, and I did the thing this week, the 5 best games and what they mean from last year. When he's playing well, he's kind of a streaky scorer. There were several games in which he would score 10 points in like 2.5 minutes.
Wow.
Have a couple threes in there, breakaway dunk. You get to the free throw line, sink some free throws, kind of doing a lot of different stuff. And as your lead scorer or as one of your main go-to guys, that's tough. But he's not going to be the first or second option. It's going to be RJ and Armando going to be those guys. If your third scorer can be a streaky guy or can score in bunches, you remember what Brady did. Brady did that. He scored in bunches a lot of the time.
He was huge. Yeah.
That could take you. That's the kind of stuff that puts the foot on the throat of an opponent or gets you off to a good start. Mm-hmm. They had a game. I can't remember who it was. It was against Florida State, maybe, where he scored 10 points in a 2-minute, 17-second stretch. And it went from a 2-point lead to an 11-point lead. I think they ended up losing the game, but that shows you what he can do in a short period of time. And if you're doing that and you're surrounded by Carolina's talent as opposed to Notre Dame's talent, they can complement that and keep the lead going. So I'm really interested in seeing the effect of some of his quick strike barrages of points and how that affects the team, how that lifts them, and if they're able to pick that barrel up and continue to carry it forward.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that, halfway through the season, maybe the end of the season, Carolina fans will look back and say, man, he was the most important guy they got in the portal. And maybe it won't be. Maybe there's a lot of other guys that could potentially be that way too, even including the freshman class coming in. But I think with what Ryan brings and that ACC experience is just so big for me. I think you kind of know and can expect what you're going to get from him. But when you take that step up to North Carolina, it can either really elevate you even more, and sometimes it can hinder you as well. He doesn't seem like a guy who's going to be hindered by that pressure I think he's a guy, if anything, they'll be elevated by being, having the North Carolina written across his jersey. And again, if he can do what Brady Manick did, then he's going to be a Carolina fan favorite for a very, very long time. So we'll see what the heck happens this year. Coming up, still some more of these look ahead shows we're going to be doing over the next few weeks. So make sure you guys keep it locked and stay tuned for those. We've still got some players we've obviously got to talk about before the start of the season, which isn't too far away now. And it's funny, AJ, Carolina fans are this is the first time I've seen it in a while for obvious reasons, but Carolina fans are in football mode, man. I'll tweet about basketball and get guys saying, why aren't you talking about football? That was unheard of a few years ago. It was always the opposite. Like bring on basketball season after 5 games. It ain't like that no more, AJ. It's football season at Chapel Hill.
I got that last week, and I'm at media day. What am I supposed to do? I'm at media day.
Why are you covering basketball? Come on, man. It's football season. That's what people are saying too. Yeah. No, I've gotten that a few times.
We have a ton of basketball content coming out leading up to the start of the season. We're going to have something almost every day.
Yeah. Live action this Friday as well.
And we should. Let's remember, we did it in football. It's just that football wasn't competing with an in season for anything. Mm-hmm. Basketball competes with football being in season. So we got the midnight, what are they called? The
live
burning
action,
the midnight oil, burning the midnight oil. We've got that going on big time. So we make sure that we continue our football coverage as is to our standard. And now we've added the basketball preview side, and we're doing more on the preview side for basketball than we've ever done before. So
a ton of basketball stuff right now.
We're loaded. And so much of it is on the message board that you can only access on the premium board.
50% off through Friday, man.
Take advantage of our deal. It's a flash sale, guys. 50% off Friday at noon. It ends. And someone who subscribes, a new subscriber, will randomly choose someone to win 3 free tickets to the Miami game, which means that you will have more than made your money back.
Oh, my God. I mean, that could be a very, very fun night in Chapel Hill. It could be a great weekend as well with live action, like I mentioned a few times on Friday night as well. Obviously, a few of us will be there for that. So make sure you keep it locked to TarHillIllustrated.com and our YouTube channel for all your coverage of North Carolina football, basketball, and recruiting. Big thank you to Underdog Fantasy again for sponsoring this show. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. We appreciate y'all watching as always. Make sure if you think Cormac's going to have a great year, think he's a good addition to North Carolina, like the video below. Make sure you share. Make sure you hit the notification bell too, because I don't know if you guys have noticed, we upload a ton this time of year. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.